As I often do, I'm going to reflect on Torah in a way that hopefully fulfills its identity as Torat Chaim, Torah that has an impact on how we look at our lives and how we navigate our lives. And so, what we see is that the Torah has a plan A and a plan B for how to deal with the reality of human violence. Human beings are potentially violent. And God says, Kates kol basar balafanai, I am aware, ki malah haaretz Hamas mipnehem, that violence fills the earth. Interestingly, the Hebrew word for violence used in the Torah is Hamas, means something very different in Arabic. In Arabic, it has to do with liberation. So plan A for dealing with violence is destruction of all but those that you perceive to be okay. And that's what God does first. And it is extraordinary. And it is painful. The devastation, the decreation that takes place, I imagine, must have been deeply painful for God as creator to watch. And then there's plan B. God says, I can't keep destroying the world again. That's not a solution. This is part of reality, that human nature is a mixed bag, that human beings can opt for violence or creation or anything in between. Plan B is moral education. That is what the rest of the Torah is about, taking people and trying to instruct them from their earliest years to live their lives in ways that are decent, that create rather than destroy. And so you see a 2-year-old, and the 2-year-old bites another 2-year-old. And a good parent will say to the 2-year-old, look at the child that you bit. Look how sad that child is. You see how sad? Trying to inculcate feelings of empathy that lead to acting with decency and with responsibility. So I want to just pan out the camera a little bit. The world has, for over 2 years now, been looking at Israel and looking at Israel's war with Hamas. And so many people seem to lack the educational foundation to understand that if they are progressive, if they do care about human rights, as I care about human rights, and I hope we all do, then they should be opposing Hamas at every turn. Hamas that doesn't care about the rights of women, about the rights of people who identify as LGBT, about the rights of actual Palestinians. Recently, I signed an open letter, and I don't generally sign letters having to do with the upcoming mayoral election in New York City, recognizing that one of the candidates has refused to completely and unequivocally condemn statements that have resulted in violence toward Jewish people. My signing of the letter has nothing to do with his religion. My signing of the letter has nothing to do with his economic policies or plans. It has to do with the fact that he doesn't see or own the direct line between statements that he fails unequivocally to condemn and violence that is done towards a whole group of people. And one passage in the letter reads, we call on all Americans who value peace and equality to participate fully in the democratic process in order to stand up for candidates who reject anti-Semitic and anti-Zionist rhetoric and who affirm Israel's rights to exist in peace and security. Let's talk about education. I would love to see those who identify as progressive and pro-Palestinian visit the kibbutzim where the murders took place, where the massacre took place, where rapings and butchering of old and young alike took place. Why? First of all, and I say this with a tiny bit of snark, God will forgive me, they can learn what actual socialism looks like. But secondly, they can also learn what it means to be pro-Palestinian in a meaningful way, because they will meet the family members of those who were abducted and murdered, who used to meet Gazan children at the border and take them to hospital visits. They will meet those who attended peace conferences, and Hamas was gathering the names of those people so that they knew where they lived. They will meet the people who hired those who came from Gaza, and they worked in the kibbutz and helped out. They will meet those individuals who are progressive in ways that try to make the world better and that transcend the merely performative. All of this is part of an education that needs to take place, starting as early as possible in a person's life. One can uphold human rights and note that they include Jewish rights. That should not be a controversial statement. That should be a simple statement that every person of goodwill can uphold, and education is part of that. You may have seen that recently in Manalapan, right near where I grew up in New Jersey, a number of high school girls wrote online about a Halloween costume that they were thinking of putting together for this year's Halloween. And the costume included dressing up as shoeless children from the Holocaust. And one of the children, one of the girls, was going to have a can of gas. And that was going to be part of the costume. Halloween costume. If that doesn't point to the need of better education about civics, about decency, about the dangers of hate, starting at the youngest age possible, I don't know what does. So God decides wholesale destruction, we're not going to do that anymore, but we need to educate. And God promulgates what are known as the Shiva Hilchot B'nai Noach, the 7 laws that are addressed to all of humanity that have to do with basic decency. And God puts a rainbow in the sky, and that rainbow symbolizes we are going to try as a species to all get along and coexist on this planet together. And God will choose Abraham and Sarah to promulgate a message of decency and humanity and light. That is the plan B. So I urge us, with everything going on, to do our best as we educate an emerging generation to understand what it means, as I said earlier to Lily, to be kind and also to be brave. May we be able to educate in such a way that violence becomes marginalized and that goodness and decency and justice will ultimately take over our neighborhood, our country, and the world. Shabbat Shalom.